Howdy, kids. All right, well, today's one might be a little controversial. Might be stuff you're not supposed to talk about the general pagan populace, but I don't care. I often prepare for when I'm going to teach a class. I prepare on the internet sometimes. I'll make a video about part of what I'm going to talk about, and actually tonight, after I make this video, I'm starting a series of class called Priest and Priestess with a capital P. Training of priests and priestesses, because I find two different types normally out there. There's priest and priestess with a small p, which quite often is the people that become a priest and priestess or acting priest or priestess after a year and a day, and some traditions have that. But often I find way too many people donning the title of priest or priestess, uh, yet having no actual responsibilities, and no training, or no training. Just on some other page, there was we were going back and forth. There was some of the 17-year-old high priestess. And somebody said, "How did you become a high priestess?" I said, "Well, I asked a friend of mine that was a high priestess," and she said, "Okay." And that was it. And having said that, I was a high priest by 17, but I trained for that, and I was in a system that had training for that. But I find there are many systems out there that have no training program for priests and priestesses. So uh, I'm I'm doing that, and I'm doing that outside of my own tradition. I have people from my tradition coming to the class, but people outside too. And it's the cheapest class that I've ever done because I think it's important work. Important that the people that are running the show have training to run the show. There's a lot to it, but I have a little book I made up for that. Some writings of mine. Now, my tradition had a training for priests and priestesses, but also one of the first things it said is, that somebody wants to become a priest or priestess, first let them learn to become a leader of men, and then it kind of leave you to figure that out. Then you have to find that out yourself. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. Everything that I read, every idea I come across, my first thought is, how can I use that for witchcraft? So I study totally unrelated texts and relate them to witchcraft. So some of my leadership training was studying things like the art of war. You may not like, may not be into war. I don't like war either, but the text teaches some great many things about the leadership of people and how to move people from one place to another, how to have uh, intact systems of leadership. And regardless that the book was about war, I find things in that book very useful for leadership, and many people do. That's a book studied by business people, and it has nothing to do with business. It has a lot to do with leadership, and many texts like that. I've studied a lot of works of great generals, leaders, politicians, presidents, this kind of thing, even leaders of revolutionary movements. I find, even in a religious context, I find useful things for training on the leadership of people. I've been in this position for a long time, and so I have some things to say. So part of the class that I'm going to be doing tonight, part of the class will center around a portion of my own work that I have here that I'm going to read to you. I haven't spent a whole lot of time sitting here reading on YouTube. I don't have a text version, so I can't just include the text. It's handwritten, but a little document that I came up with to help facilitate this or start the path of training of priests and priestesses. I call it the 13 Laws of Leadership. Um, I stopped at 13 because 13 is a great number in the craft, but there's many more, and there's much more to learn. But as a starting point, some basics. So if you're in the position of being a leader or on your way to be a position of leader, this is for you. Other people, maybe you'll just find it interesting. I know I have a lot of entry-level students on my page too. Um, so hopefully you'll find something of worth uh, in this. Some people will take issue with it. This is, discussing the path of priest and priestess is a secret to a lot of traditions, but I don't believe in a lot of secrets anymore. Almost everything has been published. Just because you can't find it doesn't mean that it's still a secret. And these kinds of things, I find the lack of leadership training and then us still having people donning the titles of leader without any training is extremely harmful. Um, that's why I offered the cheapest class that I've ever done, just to make sure that everybody could attend that kind of thing. So I don't know how long it's going to take me to read these 13 laws, so I'm going to just bust into them and just read them and not really elaborate much on them. But the 13 Laws of Leadership by Birch. Number 1, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Okay, I borrowed that. You see, even in Star Trek, I find things that I can use for witchcraft. Um, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You can't please everyone. A priest or priestess must make all reasonable attempts at helping their covenants. But above all, the needs of the group come first. There may be at times that the interests of the individual conflict with the interests of the group. At these times, while consulting with the individual and attempt to quell any issues or hurt feelings, the interest of the group must be chosen over the interest of the individual. 2. A healthy priest makes all things sound. An old saying. A leader must have energy, motivation, direction. Thus, a leader must take steps to be healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It is often difficult for those who are truly motivated to serve others and the gods to remember to serve themselves first. If you are not meeting your needs, you shall wither away and serve no one but the worms. Sacrifice is service to the gods, but not to the extent that you kill yourself. And we do not approve of human sacrifice. A capital P must be giving, but there is a line one must learn not to cross, that of having given too much. Number 3, know thy people. In order to help your covenanters grow, a capital P must be well acquainted with the strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes, and overall health and emotional states of their members. Because to facilitate the work that must be done and accomplish Rule 2, a capital P must become a delegator and delegate responsibilities accordingly. To build confidence and help your covenanters gain new strengths, it is important to assign some tasks that may be difficult, but the capital P is confident that the task is within the ability of the covenanter. In other words, assign tasks that they will be able to accomplish, but only after a bit of struggle. This creates confidence. A capital P must continue to elevate the difficulty levels progressively with the hope that we will eventually have a covenanter strong enough to take on the tasks with a high possibility of failure and succeed. Eventually, they must be allowed to fall on their face in order to learn how to pick themselves up. That was 3. Did I say the numbers? 3. Okay. 4. Idle hands are the shadow's playthings. Keep your people busy between rituals. A leader must be going somewhere. Have grand plans you will fulfill, projects to accomplish, great deeds, a vision. projects for leaders in training to try their hands at, grunt work for the grunts. People get anxious and antsy when they have nothing to do. They get bored and grumbly. If sitting in the grass, they will pick things, fidget with sticks, and build little tools, structures that have no purpose. Better to take the natural drive to do something, to accomplish a great many things, than have that energy turn upon us in a negative way. When times are at their worst, when panic sets in, and the panic in our mind consumes us, keeping our hands busy on small tasks keeps us out of our minds until the storm passes. That one's probably handy for everybody. 5. Bend words wisely. A capital P must never be seen as a liar. So we must choose our words wisely and apply certain vagueness appropriately. When operating in a priestly capacity, some answers should not be given, encouraging the covener to seek their own wisdom. Sometimes answers must be half given, leading halfway down a path and disappearing, so the covener has to find their own path. Learn how to artfully use words and phrases like perhaps. In a manner of speaking, it has been said that, and this is one of my favorites, we shall see. And what do you think the answer is? And this is one of my other favorites. I can neither confirm nor deny that. Number 6. Always have an answer. I don't know is never an acceptable answer from a leader, even if you don't in fact know. I have not yet concluded my research on that is perhaps better. Now this is the difference between leaders and followers. When a question arises, what do we do? Where do we go? That question is usually directed by several people to one or two people. If those one or two are not the priest and priestess, then you have found your next people to train. Some leaders are born, some leaders are made. Somehow everyone knows who they are. A leader must have an answer to questions of direction or the ability to convey confidence that the answer is forthcoming. Even when one does not give an answer, the leader must seem to possess one. 7. Glamour. A leader must exude confidence, must speak clearly and with authority. One must know how to cast a glamour, to give an outward appearance regardless of the turmoils that rage within. A glamour is accomplished by visualization and emotion and projection, clearly seeing in the mind's eye the most perfect version of oneself and pushing it outward to act like a shell around you. Stage training is an excellent addition to a leader's skill package. Public speaking and projection training is also a must. 8. Probably the more controversial one here. Us versus them. It is an unfortunate wiring of human social DNA that as soon as you have a group, it will need an opposition to define itself by. This one is hard to face, but you're welcome to test my theory. It is best for the leadership to specifically designate a them for us to compare ourselves to and to drive us to excel and be better than them. Optimally, a church or Christians, a church, unfortunately some groups turn on other groups within the craft, but the us-them happens. Now, and that wouldn't have happened if the leader had established that the church over there them. All right. A leader who fails to declare an exterior adversary will oft find that the us versus them scenario will manifest itself within the circle. Your people will form cliques and turn on each other. Ultimately, this scenario will manifest as soon as the group becomes cohesive. This is something that just happens out of your control, but control on how the energy manifests can be accomplished by the capital P. 9. Define your principles. Some of the words oft described as necessary for a craft group to function include perfect love and perfect trust, respect, harmony, wisdom. Some of these are subjective terms with changing definitions depending on who is defining them. It is best for the leadership to define the group's definition of such terms and what constitutes a breach of those terms and the penalties involved. While it might be possible to use dictionary definitions as a starting point for some terms, but when you try to define something like perfect love and perfect trust, we won't find a definition to start with, but several hundred. All too commonly, some define them as something akin to blind faith, codependent love, things which are far from perfect. The rule I know well, as the prime tenet of my group, is personal responsibility. We've had to go round and round defining personal responsibility and what constitutes a breach of personal responsibility. 10. Lead through action. If you are in the lead position, all eyes are on you. Every action you take will be talked about, scrutinized, and should things turn foul, used against you. If your words and actions are in balance, your position will be unassailable. Your words must be recognizably expressed by your actions. Your actions must motivate those following you to move forward towards a common goal. Never move backwards unless it is to take a circuitous route towards forward. If you preach love, your actions must express love. Sometimes you may have to take an action that will be later clarified by your words, but take care not to get into the habit of explaining yourself too much. This will be covered later. 11. If you make a rule, see that it is obeyed. There's a fine line between pushy and pushover, the line you must find. If you're too harsh in your judgments, your people will grow to resent you. If you're not harsh enough, they will walk all over you. When you get it just right, they will respect you. Your rules must be wisely and justly written and wisely and justly enforced. It is best to decide the punishment for violating a rule at the time the rule is drafted. Some rules may require punishment only after the second or third offense, and some no second chance. These should be clearly defined and understood by all. When a violation has occurred that the other members know about or have witnessed, the punishment must be handled in a public manner, in front of all members if possible, or documented to all of the members. Let the punishment fit the crime, and have methods of clearly establishing guilt or innocence that will not be disputed later. However, it is best for the leaders to be disassociated with such negativity, or at least appear so. A community board or coven council to handle these issues is often good policy. Wow, it's not taking that long to get through these. All right. 12. Spiritual triage. Save who can be saved. Some people are beyond help. They are subconsciously driven to have a miserable life. They constantly make bad choices leading only to more misery and seem to revel in it. Such people tend to speak and emote only about the worst aspects of their lives. talking endlessly of their pain and misery, bringing the whole group down. You can try to train such people not to keep sending negativity out to the universe. I mean, this too is witchcraft. You constantly sending a vibration out and it coming back threefold. That's witchcraft. Don't talk about the bad stuff all the time. Especially if you're one of those people, maybe learn yourself not to do that. It may seem cold, but in keeping with rule number 1, once such a person has been identified, they must be separated from the group or removed entirely. A capital P must save their love and care for the coven or group. If such a person is not removed, their illness will spread through the group like a cancer, and you will have served no one. Similarly is the grumbler. Easy to identify, as every time they open their mouths, it is to complain, bitch, and gripe. Some people tend to contribute nothing of value and offer only negativity to the contributions of others. If this person is not removed, the hurt feelings of the other coveners will lead to more grumbling, more negativity, and the group will start fighting within. You could try and give the grumbler control over one of the things they are grumbling about and see if they can do better, but this seldom works. Number 13. The work of the gods. In traditional craft hierarchy, the priest represents the god and the priestess represents the goddess. It is the realm of the goddess to offer care and compassion, and the realm of the god to offer rules, limitations, and sternness when needed. So the job of the goddess becomes the job of the priestess, the job of the god becomes the job of the priest, etc. Not all men and women operate the same, however, and neither do all gods and goddesses. When a time comes to handle the unpleasant job, choose the priest or priestess best suited for the job. Always remember the goddess has a dark face, and the god also has a compassionate and caring side. Let ability and not gender be the deciding factor. In other words, it's not always going to be the priest's job to come down on people when they've done wrong, to enforce the rules. Typically and traditionally, yes, that is the realm of God. God is limitations, rules, lines in the sand. This is the realm of God. Caring, compassion, love, the realm of the goddess. But that's too limiting. Not all men are that way, and not all women are that way. There are, I guess for lack of better terms, masculine women, feminine men, or men in touch with their feminine side, women in touch with their masculine side, however you want to call that. And then, then we have gay people, which tend to, be operating from the opposite gender principle of their birth gender. That makes, I can't think of a better word to say that, but you kind of understand what I'm saying. So that's old tradition, and old tradition is not always the way that we operate now. I'm sure there will be much discussion over this. I can't dwell on each one of these in a video, but when I do it in the class, we're going to discuss all these things a lot, and there's more material in the class. But I wanted to offer this portion, the prepared portion that I have, that's usable for the world. I wanted to offer that to the world because I never unlike the grumblers, I never like to just grumble, and I do grumble and bitch when I see things that are wrong. And one of the things that I've often seen that are wrong is people assuming the role of priest or priestess that have no training. In my system, priest and priestess means responsibility. It is a rank, rank, I guess, rank has its privileges, as they say, but in a lot of systems, that's pretty much all it is. Rank is a color you wear on your cord that you wave around to show off to other people. In our system, each color in the cord is a pile of shit we had to climb through to reach that position. Some trials, some tribulations, and it represents the huge amount of responsibility that we have thus taken. You know, priests and priestesses taking on the responsibility of priests and priestesses, teachers taking on the responsibility of teachers, wardens taking on the responsibility of wardens, and high priests and high priestesses taking on those high responsibilities, which are not really talked about here. The realm of the high priest and high priestess is much bigger. Traditionally, and this is like when I heard this person talking about becoming a high priestess by asking a high priestess, I wondered, well, were you a priestess first? Because ultimately, they're supposed to go together. You're supposed to go priestess and then high priestess, because high priestess is higher than priestess. And then the other thing that I kind of had an irk with when I heard that is my system was clearly established, and it makes absolute sense in a hierarchy system. I can't say hierarchical. I never can say that word right. In a hierarchy system, one cannot initiate a person to their level, but can initiate the person to the level below them. So in that, a high priestess would not be able to initiate a high priestess. Does that make sense? They could initiate a priestess, and then you need an elder, or depending on your system, whatever step is higher than high priestess, that person to initiate somebody into high priestess. And although I did become a high priest around 17 years old, they wouldn't let me become an elder until just a couple years ago. So 46. I forget how old I am. I think I was 46. I was 45, 46. But I had to get age before I got to be an elder. And all systems have their own ways about that. But I had a very long time of being a high priest. And having said that, I did initiate a couple people to my level, because there were no elders present in my system. We had no elder, and we couldn't reach an elder, so had to do what we had to do. So necessity is the mother of initiation, I guess. I can't think of anything more I have to say. That was the prepared portion of what I had to say. I hope this reaches the right viewers, and those viewers find value in it. And you should, if you're going to be taking on these positions and you're not receiving training from your system, I hold you personally responsible to get training. Like I said, stage training, public speaking training. These are things, you can probably take workshops in your community on these things. There's always ways to facilitate that. Very neat, very part.